My name is Ryan. I'm the Assistant Director here at the North Adams Public Library. Really appreciate you coming out on this gorgeous Tuesday night. I just want to mention one thing. Northern Berkshire Community Television is here filming the event. If anyone is uncomfortable with that, please let me know and we'll find you a seat out of range, but pretty much Peter's camera is going to be focused on Stephen all night, so. Lucky you, right? Yeah. I just want to say that when Stephen asked me about using the library to do this a couple months ago, I was honored. And so thank you for asking me, thank you for thinking of the library first. I've known Stephen now for a couple of years, and I love his poetry and I love the new book. So again, on behalf of the library, we're honored to have you here. And
thank you.
I think that's about it.
Thanks.
I also want to mention, Stephen will take it away, and I'm going to hang by the door.
Yeah.
And there are cookies.
There'll be books for signing afterwards, or purchase and signing.
So everyone's comfortable, right? Cool enough? Good? All right. Welcome.
Okay.
Nice to be here.
Excuse me. Thank you, friends, for coming, all of you. It's so nice to see you. Tomorrow's the last day of Poetry Month, National Poetry Month. And I think it was set up in the 90s by Congress as an act of civilization and appreciation of poets. I remember when Robert Frost was our cultural ambassador to Russia during the Kennedy administration, and he was out there promoting America by promoting poetry. Well, we're in another Cold War now, but it's at home, and it's nice to get away from it into something else. So this is news too, what I'm going to be reading to you, but news of the spirit and not the headlines necessarily. Maybe there's some indirect relationship. I don't know. First of all, what is poetry? You know, well, how do you describe poetry? Robert Frost said, a poem begins in delight and ends in surprise. That could be a date too, but it's that's not bad. William Wordsworth has a rather famous definition of poetry when he tried to describe the process that he underwent and experienced when he wrote. And he said, a poem is an expression of emotion, recollected, and tranquility. Emotion, recollected, and tranquility. He didn't say disciplined by language. That was up to Coleridge to describe that. What did Coleridge say exactly? I forget. He said, poetry is the best words in the best order. Well, that's true, but I'm not sure what that means exactly. But the best words in the best order. And then Rifkin says, a poem is a play of language that extends a point with pleasure. A poem is a play of language that extends a point with pleasure. Even if it's a dark poem, it's pleasurable to read about. Poetry is wine, prose is water, another way of describing it. Anyway, I'm going to be reading to you today from Changing Skies, New and Selected Poems. That's my new book, which I'm launching here. The selected poems are poems that I picked from my first book, which many of you read, The Merit of Light, my first book of poems. And the new poems are poems since the first book came out in 2014, so it's been a while. But let's see. The first poem I'm going to read is called Tides for the Moon. The old war canoe lies beached over a coffee table. The room edged with fire rests out in the night. Bookcases, fireplace, a Fusner painting. We sit shining in middle distance, a couple of moons. We esteem each other. A birch log hisses. We may wax forever in the garden. What if the glass sky wavers? A branch stirs. The tart air sways within caution. You repeat my name, neighbor of your own, laughing. Then shift, rising upon the mist and above dark water, your hair filled with a constellation of stars. Wait, wait, I call, but there is history only. There is mist rising and a thin moon to light the slipping tide. Winter inroads. Do you remember inroads? Their feats of branch-entangled light? Being blind to confusion, you wish gloom or bliss. The heart wishes more, your feet a hard surface. The day calls to mind other days, an allotment of retrospective that trails in onward to us. Do you recall? There, along the way, old trees lie collapsed in arms of the young. New shoots inspire new ambition. Perhaps a useless tire, tin can, an oil drum obtrude in snow beside, occasionally, an oasis of someone's rubbish or home. You drive on, or you creep through snow on hand and knee, the tar road highways stretched to essentials. Or do they, the old ones, kill them outright, heavy limbs pressed quite unconsciously, now bliss, now nothing like. Wilmer and I used to go when we lived in Maine on Deer Isle, we used to go in the winter, get in our car and drive to Mexico. And we spent many winters in San Miguel de Allende or Guanajuato. These are Spanish Baroque cities, up in the mountains of the central highlands, cobblestone streets, Baroque churches, lots of people. But there was also a not so pleasant side. There were lots of dogs on roofs at night. There was a lot of disturbance. The silver mines that were owned by Canadians up in the mountains supported that whole area, but these were all resources extracted out and sent elsewhere. Anyway, it was a very interesting place, but also disturbing. So I'll read to you a poem that I wrote, sort of that place, called The Central Bus. If you know Mexico, the streets can be crowded, a lot of people, a lot of buses, and fumes. The bus noses out the dog in noxious fume and sets the ear in raucous noise. The dog earns our sympathy when lost, tongue out, a panic in the eye, and to the cobbled, crowded city tossed. The bus noses past the dog in noxious tune and tells tight streets its ghastly voice, and navigates to wastes of earth, a marvel once, but long ago. We gaze offended at its pass, a stench, a roar of disregard. Blake traced with all his might the chimney sweep, or horror. The bus has poison for the mind and ample poison for our breath. All the streets it rides upon please us the evening it is gone. Sound with song of the guitar, why should the poor be sinister? But anger rests upon a rock, and here the mountains multiply. All who contemplate their wealth set a dog upon a roof to balk. Bright teeth that flash, and a terror in the eye, guard the property of dark. Sleep will come to us in stealth, where law is sleep itself. A dog is merely lost. This poem also has its inspiration from our being in Mexico. Our visitors. We mind them yet when they appear in the squares, to live among the poor in poor alleys and cross a city's heart, when no trace of squalor lingers there but pride, their shadows requisite. And they are here at corners waiting for the bus that never comes, a tall red double the late queen might have seen, of the empire, a scullery maid, or sweep with tangled matted hair and looks of someone. Or someone stopped to look and see the latest short style, a skirt or hat, and there and in the mirrored window, what none of us has seen, a city burned before their eyes. We mind the changes they remind us of, the privilege gone, and they recall, with bitterness, they mind us not at all. That's my ghost poem. And the last in this collection of cities that are memorable in all kinds of ways. This poem actually won third prize in a contest that Mark Miller judged in Charles's magazine a long, long time ago, Charles's journal. I forget what the rules of the contest were, but I submitted this and it won a prize, so nice. Elevator. That won first prize. This isn't the elevator poem, this is my poem. That was Astrid's poem. Stops. Minding the sudden light, I stop for them. The wild men, their hair wild, faces grizzled, gray, and their flags flying. The women, dolls on board, dour. They ride past, wheeling on main in ramps of extravagant flight, all smoke. The red light changes. I cross in the vapid dusk of a dying city. When life screams past or to a halt like a loose motorcycle brought up short and rages. I look down from the top of my prospects, so to speak, as though from an elevator that I take to the top, past the lesser stations, each hawking something brazen, creepy, coy, aim above the rest. The cage rises like a bad meal had with terrible company when no one listens. A huge mistake lies somewhere in the dark first floor of self. Among the fundamentals, it hugs the dark and glistens. But I have reached my high lookout and perch above the lamplit city's acute valley. The lone headlight makes the hair pin. Its flare glints and scours the black hills. I watch it cut off its descent. I ride the dark ice for thrills. Now we get to seasons. The visible claims of leaves. Turn on the visible claims of leaves, barely seen, then all at once wind changes, turns them again and again, but not forever. Neither are angels there in trees. Observe birds, flights of angels. Night comes along with stars. I gazed a while, saw discordant lives, the tide of stars, thought, wind changes, read history, same, wind changes, owned, thought to own a precious cat. There's a river birch, stark and stripped of leaves, tall in winter. All trees seem but fragile, like all living beings who cannot speak for rage and indignation. That life of ours, wind changes. profusions of fall. Now the puzzle leaves assembled, bright and ample leaves that fell in diversions, swept and adapted to charms of the wind, joined readily in essence, their compelling assemblage within restless profusions of fall about the fall wind. I saw then, listening to their stirrings, that rush of travel and journey to silence, or distant cessations of travel, listening for winter when it was winter, those whom I love assembled beneath cold their remembered skies. Robin in winter, into my day, that field of light, the robin ventured, who courted berries and left husks. Branch by branch he started and dug, and shells lay strewn by the yard on snow like rust. There was not one shrub alone that showed his fervor, and all I imagined compelled his flight. He courted love in cold weather and left love with all his might. We have a lot of robins outside in the winter. I didn't know before that they like winter and stay in winter. I'll read that one again. Robin in winter. Into my day, that field of light, the robin ventured, who courted berries and left husks. Branch by branch he started and dug, and shells lay strewn by the yard on snow like rust. There was not one shrub alone that showed his fervor, and all, I imagined, compelled his flight. He courted love in cold weather and left love with all his might. We'll get away from winter soon, I promise. Situating frost. This is a good, okay. Situating frost. Even as I observe numbly this winch of groans and freezes, a flutter with details and excellence issues starkly and sleek with knuckled feet. O winter, what have you? It, visiting boldly, nimble and persistent, perched on a spring. I left out before, at the beginning, William Carlos Williams, The Red Wheelbarrow. And this is along the lines of what is poetry. The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rain, water, beside the white chickens. Make of that what you will. It's concise. Okay. Disposition. A disposition in the garden. It could be a deposition, but a disposition works the way I want it to, both ways. This is about a hawk. I have a number of bird poems, but it's really about something else. The hawk's intent was clear, biding his time. And the mouse perched stupidly on a rock by the pond. I sat to reflect. Above me, clouds stopped, dismissive, and passed, registering little but themselves. A soul mouse, or mouse soul, hunched on his little workings. When a high wind carried a winged spectacle I did not thwart, but watched. Curiosity pricked or stayed by a cast of fear. When a pond broached clear murder, and mouse, bird so near anonymous, language is telling. Waltz in the dark. Wherever I am and I travel far into the dark, I see them, and with a sigh or inner conviction, for I have lived, and light appears to compose the dark. The power of art is to compromise distance, or so to shine, and so waltz. The waltz is love. And so it is summer on the great lawn, and in the dark, but with starlight soon, and with their constellation, the light in which Brahms saw Clara. I listen, the waltz begins and lingers, for now it is autumn, not spring, but not winter yet, and though surely not summer, yet always, it seems, one starlit night, a waltz in the dark, there to be continued and to be. And that is a wonderful sketch of a couple doing the waltz by Wilma, which you'll see close up if you get the book. Anyway, it's hard to see. The longing. The branches sway in tapering winds, and under the winds they fly. Scattering leaves, the woods decay and summon us. On earth they ply the amplitudes, the arms that snake substance under winds, and why, branch upon branch, the living sway, and the quick trees that always die. We walk to see the nebulae, a rise of wood, the starlit sky. Our cluster arms so like wings or ghost imploring abject worlds, to read of night affinities and wonder in our calculus of words that gloss in swaying trees and woodlands rising just beyond the night itself, a glint of dawn and reason to infinities. In the night garden, on certain nights when I set foot on the first step, a rung of my landing, with stars before me, and there is no going back, for there lies the outer grove, and further, endless stars, all the stars in the world with you upon a vast journey. But then shadows crisscross the dark planked floor, and my plain house beside the sea, and waves billow, billowing pages and pages, white waves returning, and also the future. And so I think and say, here is my yard and my apple tree. It holds the moon, and the fruit is light. I will not have this house again. Citing Crockett Cove, which was a cove on Deer Isle, beautiful cove, Crockett Cove. I guess it's a poem about reminiscing, but a brush of the candle settles the island in a void. But what is it remarking at the window, Crockett Cove, nightfall, a thinning tide, a filament of weather, someone? Among insights where quarry overlaps quarry, departure occupies November. Arrangements of displacement cleave, while lips, specific eyes, disinclined to assemble dusk in a conifer garden. A tide's slippage and fill vector the heart it is wanting, and leafless November articulates the skill of the living, flighty, bright, or branched simply, so much is leaving. What shall edify December? The sea turns on the coast, yet the coast remains, a vacillation among spruce. The sense of blue, the eye in the glass wavers. Of irises, so much is framed and unsaid in language. Where light is published, the eye amended. In the newspapers, in a garden at dusk, blades stem and bud, or now stars, bluish and blush, divide misstatements equally and meanings. Interposed life is fleeting, vaguely over walks and ubiquitous trees, some crooks the more, a sense of wounds overfelt doubtless on paper between each cut slim flower. A betrayal minute as you sip and while you read in the space of trials after hard quiet, some process or the dark news altering phrases you suspect concerning irises and creation itself. Seems like a lifetime ago, but it was 2015 or something. Wilma and I we're in Greece on Corfu, I think. Is that where we were? Corfu? Lesbos. Close. Lesbos, right. Thanks. And I had been there when I was very young, and now the news was dreadful because if you remember, this was during the height of our awareness, or our recent awareness, that the international problem, the world problem, was the movement of refugees and people all over the place. And their safety couldn't be guaranteed. You know, things were pretty, and we still have that. We still have the same issue of. So this is based on an experience there in Lesbos. Christmas 2015. Places change. Something steals the roads. We entered Lesbos, and the harbor shone. The water ferried images of classic houses. The shape of hills lay in shimmered waves. I found a tea room. Men sat and smoked or dozed at games. A glare of daylight hid you for a spell. A year ends. The mind rifles ancient texts and rummages shore. At Lesbos, the night grew black, and Sappho held her breath for love. When ships of Athens sailed, a senate called the killers back. We entered camp. Twilight lit its embers. We passed like shades. The eyes of children shone. A raft yawed, adrift on surf. We watched the moon-churned tide, the sea. Waves gleamed that bore their freight in dark. I held my breath and watched them rise and wash ashore. How can I write to you of beaches where the dead lie? My words and they lie buried. The houses of the dead gleam on water. In our time like war, a perfect picture of good, you scampered on the bank to catch a swan. Are swans mean where you stood? War shall end, I promise you, and the wood and the street be there still. Follow the wild path of your heart, there shall be time as then. We shall meet at the corner coffee shop, At the window corner we met before, shall we meet there as we met before? Where there was beauty once, there will be beauty then. Just as you look in the vivid glass, just as you were, you shall be again. Hair drawn back and your amber hoops, we held hands for hours. We shall meet at the corner we met before, the bright glass hold brilliance once again. There are now no paths, but relentless hours, a cage of dark confines, the heart. There will be no frames like these again. Was I ever your swan? War ended, we shall go out, the street be splendid woodland then. I hope that's an anthem. Okay. And I'll read just a few more, and then we'll break. Coast houses. They retain a hinge of distance set to the sea. Lost in a looming idiom, they look low-key, shuttered in mist, spectral. What do they allege or purport in sun, formal and closed, in turn of the century? They observe a tireless statement of reticence. What do they advance barely with gray or white, and with shingle the scale of fish, that the sea runs swift, that it dashes far and pervasive, perverse, over beach, pine, our camp, an exhortation of breath, mist? Church glass. As you would, I gaze at them, for they are posed before Baroque facades and wear medieval clothes, and stand looking conscious that if it is amassed, humility is rewarded, and of course it was. They stand in that sense worldly, wise. But in a strange reversal, explainable only by religion, I am diverted by abundance, wrapped. These are the windows we're looking at, the stained glass. For escalated color, depths of ruby, royal and other blue, an excess of cloak, exaggeration of folds, outsized shawl, and presumable wave gold hair bring us Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, none of them plain, the church stars. For genius is a mystery that solves itself, isn't it? I think of the poets, Shelley, Byron, tragic Keats, presented, improved by outfit, noir suits and swoopy fedora hats of the 1940s, and genius, swagger. My eyes rake the backs of the heads of my neighbors seated before me, looking largely down. These are old folks, patient. We await a French horn player and the organist, enjoined by quiet, in an accompanied silence of perhaps 24 souls in the moment. Behind us lie the ends of a vast, exalted space. And I lost my other sheet, so I think that's it. Thank you for your patience and listening. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. Hi, our new neighbors. Hi, guys. If anyone's interested in buying books, they're up here. I'll sign them. They're $20 each. And any questions? I'm sort of coming apart here, I think. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to ask me? I think the poems seem kind of dark, but they're not all dark. And if you read them carefully, there's light in them. So, good. I think they're honest. It's, especially if you have trouble sleeping, it's a good way to use your time by getting lost in a spell. And the spell always starts with a drift of music, currents that go through you, and words start attaching themselves. And before you know it, phrases are moving about. And it's in the arrangement of phrases and balancing and control by stresses. If you know English and you know that it's a language of stresses, stress syllables, the art of writing is, whether it's prose or poetry, but particularly poetry, is to know those stresses and balance them and do cross currents. And it's like making music, except unlike music, you have to say something. And that's another part of your mind. But the marriage of those two things, the feelings, the music, and the message, is very healing. It really is very healing. And it's a very good way to keep your sanity in good times and in bad times, or keep your perspective. And it helps to have studied English. I was an English major and a philosophy major. And that was a brilliant choice, even though my father thought I was crazy because he wanted me to be a doctor. What are you doing taking English and philosophy? You should be taking pre-med, chemistry, and science. But those are old fights from teenage years. He's long gone to rest somewhere, and I'm here. And tomorrow is my birthday, and I'll be 86 years old. So, yep. Thank you. Okay, guys, any questions? I'm so glad you all came. It's so nice to see so many friends. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I like the way you explained the theory about how you put music
Oh.
into, I like the way you express that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Speaking of music, my friend Steve is a wonderful composer right there. We just came from a concert of his music at the Clark Art Museum the other day. Yeah. Yes, Steve.
I have a question.
This better be easy. Come on.
Well, it's a kind of a question in a conundrum to me. As a musician, when I hear poetry spoken
Mm-hmm.
or being read to,
Mm-hmm.
it's a completely different experience than reading it myself,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no sound associated with reading. The only sound that you hear is the sound you create in your mind, but there's no voice to it.
You can sub-vocalize when you read. When you're reading, you sub-vocalize also, especially poetry. You say it to yourself in here somewhere, as well as hearing it.
But it's a different experience for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
How would you guide me in reading as opposed to listening?
Well, before I try to answer that question, Steve Dankner wrote a wonderful work called The Merit of Light, in which he orchestrated, it's his music, but wrote for a solo voice 7 of my poems. And that was a wonderful experience to work with him. And then we went up to Ithaca College, upstate New York, and it was the premier was there at the music department. This goes back a number of years, I don't know, 9 years, 10 years, something like that. 2014. And what a wonderful experience to be up there, and you can experience that by going to YouTube and looking up Stephen Dankner and look for The Merit of Light, and it'll say music for 7 poems I think it was, right? By Stephen Rifkin. It's a wonderful work. Anyway, getting back, what was your question exactly?
I don't think I need to have an answer.
Okay.
So it's fine. Steve and I are really great friends, and we met years ago at the Tunnel City Coffee Shop. And it's just a thrill to see you express your own creativity through a medium that is completely your own.
Well,
Our collaboration was a little bit difficult because Steve had to let go of his particular interpretation of his own work. And I say, it's very difficult for him, I think, it was for that experience. As it is for me when I write a piece of music and I give it to a performer, and I say, all right, it's not mine anymore, it's yours, that kind of thing. And I think when you read to the audience as you are now, it's a form of letting go as well, because they have to
There were good singers and less good singers too.
Well,
Yeah,
but the audience has
Yeah.
to grasp the intent
yeah,
very quickly because it's gone.
yeah,
And like music,
Yeah.
as soon as you say the words,
Yeah.
it's gone.
yeah. Well, the advantage of this is that it's in my book, so you can recreate it for yourselves. That's hard to do with music. The music is something that to be experienced the way it was performed, but also somehow the way you directed them by writing it, and it's, you know.
The poem If by Kipling, I found that poem to basically tell how my life was going to turn out.
Oh.
I found in this poem, and as a matter of fact, I was in a hospital giving a treatment to someone, and I noticed this fellow who was comatose. And I went over to him and I said to all the people, I said, older people, I said to him, I said, tell me what you, tell me what you did in your life that helped you.
Mm-hmm.
And he recited. I
If,
didn't think he'd say a word.
if,
He recited the whole poem, If,
yeah,
by Kipling.
yes,
And then that was it. I started to cry. And that poem just was my life. And that's why your poems are of your life and where you went
Mhm.
and what you saw.
mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
a part of you.
Well, it registers experience. Yeah,
Sometimes I
yeah,
can take some of what you say
yeah.
into my life, what you
Good,
were
good.
reading.
From your lips to God's ears. If any of my poems becomes like If, and people all over the world know it, I'd be very happy.
That was my experience.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Hi.
Yeah, my question is, I'm not a poet, although some of my best friends are poets. When you read a poem, to what extent do you read it in terms of its, I don't know, for want of a better word, face value? In terms of, so you read this poem and you take away a message, you take away a teaching, you take away that you find right on the face of it, versus or in addition to indulging in your own interpretation. That poem becomes something
Yeah.
possibly other than what it was intended
Yeah.
because of what you yourself have done with it in your own
Well,
mind.
well, if one is a student of it, and I'll get to the it in a moment, the way you're a student of economics, history, social sciences, and world affairs, you have lots to compare it to. You can quickly pick up how deep it is, how much it reflects a tradition, how much of it departs. It's with experience. You take from it what you bring to it. The more experience you have in poetry or music or anything, in theater, in advertising, in design, the more you take from it. And you recognize where it falls short or where you think it falls short because you would have taken a different turn, But there's no particular answer to that. It's there. And when it's good, every time you go to it, you bring out something more. You take away something more. Those are the things. Like the most popular poem in the English language and the best known is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. And I test the state of my brain and memory by knowing that at one time, maybe still, I could recite it by heart easily. In fact, when I was an English teacher, that was my test. I was given something to teach, 20 minutes to prepare a lesson. It was that poem. Very few people know that the poem is somewhat ironical, that the poem was written because Frost, who lived in England then, left Vermont to go to England to make his reputation, had a very good friend who was a journalist and who was killed in the war, in the First World War. And his friend always said, if I had done that, if I, always spoke like that. And Frost's poem was a parody almost of that. And he was delighted that the poem took off and meant so much to so many people. But he wrote it as a kind of critique of his friend, teasing. It's a very good poem. Shall I try to say it? I don't know. I don't want to bore you with too much of this. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, which was in Frost's mind bullshit, but that's what it meant, and it became, to him, ever more meaningful in his own life. But he was making fun of his friend, really, who spoke that way. Well, guys, it's a pleasure to see you all here in this beautiful room. Thank you, Ryan, for inviting me to read. It's a pleasure. And it's great to see some of you who we haven't seen in a long time, too. Okay. Anything else? And for friends on Cape Cod who couldn't be here and on the East Coast, hi. Hi, all of you. Erica, Tamara, all of you. Okay. Okay. All right?